Well, first of all, for us adults, right, it's going to change the way we behave. The things I've learned about trauma and adverse childhood experiences since raising my own children, I would have been a different parent. I would have been a different young adult if I only knew about my own neuroanatomy and my brain's ability to regulate itself, right? About the ability to co-regulate with another human being and the need for me to take care of myself. I think that the impact over time is we're going to see our little ones not having as much exposure to ACEs. In addition to that, I mean, we're not looking to have like perfect lives all the time. It's not rainbows and unicorns all the time. It's going to impact every one of us, our ability to say, this is hard right now. I'm self-aware. And then I'm going to have a way to regulate myself so that I can access my prefrontal cortex. I can prime my brain for learning. How do I problem solve? How do I tap into those executive functioning skills, right? How do I mitigate this? So I think over time, what it's going to do is we're going to start with our little ones. It's never too young to teach kids about their brains and the power of their brains and the ability to regulate their own emotions. So generationally, just as it's impacted it in a negative way, I think over time we're going to see our community try to come together as people. We're going to see happier humans. Right? And that's what I tell kids, like when I'm working with them in school, I just want them to have a happy life when they're done with high school. I want them to be happy, healthy human beings. We're going to have better health outcomes. The more we're exposed to and are knowledgeable of the impact of ACEs in our life, and the more we learn how to conquer those ACEs, and know that ACEs are not a final predictor of who we are and our outcomes, we're going to have happier people. We're going to have less obesity, less depression, less substance abuse, less systemic chronic heart disease, less negative health outcomes. Yeah. So relationships, and how do we build relationships with our families, with our students, so that they can move forward in life? That's such an important question. And to me, it's the crux, right? And it's always been. Before I knew what ACEs were, developing relationships was something that you just kind of feel is necessary, or I have felt is necessary. It starts with a smile. But first it starts with me, right? With my brain state. Coming in here every day, whether I'm tired or not, whether I just did it yesterday, whether I had a really hard day with that student yesterday, getting off to a fresh start, letting him know I am here with you right where you are. I'm going to meet you, student. I'm going to meet you, parent, guardian, grandpa, grandma, aunt, uncle, friend of the family, whoever is your caretaker, right where you need to be. You can come in rough. That's okay. You can come in irate. That's okay. I'm going to meet you with that same calm, consistent, peaceful approach. I'm going to keep my voice low and slow. I'm not going to push. I'm going to respect boundaries. And just like touch. Not everybody wants to be touched. It takes a while for you to learn that. And to be really intentional about every interaction that I have with every human being in my job as a counselor, in my role as a community member, as a friend, as a partner, to build those relationships. I do experiments with students. I say hi a lot to people just randomly. I think just looking people in the eye and saying hello is important. And I'll say hello to a student that looks like no one said hi to them for a really long time, and they'll look at me like, and then the next day I'll say hi again and they'll still look at me like that. And a lot of people would say, but I'm just like, I'm gonna keep saying hi to you until you say hi back. I'm gonna say hi, I'm gonna smile at you. And then I'm gonna notice things about you. And I'm gonna ask you about those things, the little things. And then I'm gonna not be afraid to challenge too, right? Once I've established some level of trust. Engaging parents is essential. It's essential to the whole thing. Engaging who is ever communicating with this student, whoever is interacting with this student, they need to be part of our team too, to have that really holistic approach to helping this person. So building relationships is key. It takes that patience piece we're talking about. It takes that consistency. It takes making sure I'm aware of my biases as I come in to work with families, where I'm being genuine and congruent, it takes being aware of whether or not I'm in sync or out of sync with somebody. Like where I go in a conversation with somebody, if they like, whoa, like and start to get like, then I know I'm out of sync and I have to say, hey, I'm really sorry. I just got out of sync. I think I went too fast, right? Let's just back up a little bit and let's just get right back to where we were. And you can tell that by their verbal, by their nonverbal behaviors, right? And so all of those things, having that welcoming, opening thing, and then taking care of like little things that people need. Do you have enough to eat? Are you tired? Do you need a nap? Are you lonely? Do you just need someone to talk to you? And just that consistency over time, I think, is important. From my experience, if you don't approach people, students, parents, community members, I mean, because I work with a lot of agencies too, that have a lot of adults in them that I need them to have buy-in to so we can create that holistic thing, they're gonna hit a brick wall. They're gonna get shut down. The person's not gonna trust you. They're not gonna come back to talk to you again. They're gonna hole up and stay right where they are and not allow you to connect with them. Because that's what it's all about, right? So if I'm doing things that create friction in that connection and I'm out of sync with you, and I'm trying to be punitive and do things to you, or I'm being permissive and allowing things to happen, I'm not going to develop that relationship of trust and know that I am there and meeting you right where you are, right what you need, with what you need. For me, connection is more important than compliance. If I have connection, I'm going to have a much greater chance of having compliance. Therefore, accountability, right, for actions and behaviors. Without the connection, I'm not ever going to help influence that person to be accountable for their own behaviors, to comply to the norms and rules of society, right? And so it takes a person, I'm looking to have high control in situations. Right? I want students to succeed. I want students to do their work. I want students to embrace life and happiness. But if I'm consistently doing things that they feel I'm doing to them instead of with them, I'm not going to move an inch in that way. So to me, connection, if I've got connection, I'm increasing compliance and accountability. So one thing that I would suggest to somebody who's struggling with ACEs, and I'm not really even a suggester, I kind of help people find their own suggestions, but is to learn about your brain, to learn about your own neuroanatomy. You know, we used to think the brain was, once it developed and once we got old, it was kind of stuck and our patterns were set, but it's not. So we teach about neuroplasticity. Just like I can develop a neural pathway for like, this is horrible, life is horrible, I can't, right? That becomes easy when you develop that neural pathway. I can help them understand their neuroanatomy, that you have neuroplasticity, and you have the ability to regrow a new neural pathway that eventually will make this one weaker, right? I can, it's just hard. I can, it's just hard. I can, it's just hard. So I really work with students on paying attention to their thoughts. A lot of people think the train goes, I feel something, then I think something, and then I do something. It's really, my brain is in charge. I think it. I can't pass this test. I'm never going to graduate. This happened at home. Then I feel something, and then I behave in a certain way. So I really focus on thoughts, on those cognitions that people have, that kids have. And then once we've got them in a spot where they're learning that my brain is powerful, then we teach ways to reduce that autonomic nervous system, that stress response, that raise of cortisol when something gets me going, right? Expand that emotional vocabulary from I'm just mad to I'm kind of jealous right now, or I'm frustrated right now. And so naming it so that we can kind of calm it and tame it, and sharing it, like, right? I want to be trusted adults for people and for kids. You can come in here and tell me what's on your mind. You share it with me, we can bear it. I've got some energy I can give back to you, right? Those are things. And then, we get to other things that really get the brain: focused attention practices, taking a few minutes just to yourself to breathe, to learn how to breathe correctly, movement, healthy, diet, exercise, water. When a kid looks dysregulated to me, one of the first things I say to them is, have you had enough to drink today? Have you had enough to eat today? Right? Do you need a cat nap? A little 15-minute nap, because I might not have got enough sleep last night. And so we start slow, because we got to go slow to go fast. And if we start young, teaching people about their brain and their ability to really self-regulate, then we've got an opportunity to help them have a happy life. As educators, this is a hard job. It's day in, day out. And if you look at all the programming, schools are expected to do a whole lot. So we have to start with ourselves, and we have to be aware of our brain state when we come in every day and every interaction. So schools are really talking about that. If you're not in a good spot to be treating students in a regulated way, tap out for a second. Go do what you need to do. Go take some deep breaths, splash some cold water on your face, talk to somebody, get something to eat. Tap back in when you're ready. So that's one of the first things. We're also just really teaching about touch points. The need for that relationship building, knowing your students, practices, standing outside of the door. I see teachers shaking hands with every kid. Hey, how's your day today? How you doing today? Look them in the eye. Noticing, doing a lot of noticing. Well, I notice this kid comes every day off the bus with their head down like this, and then mentioning that to somebody who can talk to them about that. Saying hi. So those are some of the things we're doing. We're also increasing our knowledge of ACEs, right? Of adverse childhood experiences. We're becoming in touch with our own ACEs and how they've impacted how we live and operate as human beings. We're teaching neuroanatomy from a young age. We're incorporating that into learning, into lessons. That impacts employability, right? That impacts future happiness. That impacts future health. So we're trying to start at our youngest age, being consistent, using that same verbiage, right, all the way through, making sure they've got the same communication, the same message. Teachers have that. Bus drivers are regulated. Administrators are regulated. And it's like discipline on the front end, right? So if we do all of that with ourselves and we make those connections with kids, we're going to see that discipline and those things that are out of compliance.
Access to mental health care is probably the primary thing that I wish we had more of here. I hear most often in court, I hear about LifeSpring Health Systems and I hear about Centerstone. So those are the two agencies that I hear most often from or about when we're talking in the context of CHINs or delinquency cases. And what I'm hearing a lot is they're great programs there. They have great programming. But what I'm hearing a lot is that they're overwhelmed. And so access to the services that they provide is a challenge here. And that, I think, again, relates back to my earlier statement about this discussion of regional facilities that we're at least talking about at the state level, and that might be a solution. And if that can get more services to the people of our community, I'm certainly in full support of that. But getting people to the right providers, people who are suffering from substance abuse most often are also suffering from a mental health disorder, and they go hand in hand. And there aren't a lot of facilities available that address both sides of that coin. It's something that we definitely need more of. It's striking to see the willingness of those different elements willing to work together. So there are times where I've communicated directly with school counselors and about broad big picture items and about the big picture in working towards a particular problem. There are times that I'm able to communicate directly with employers and say, generally this is what I'm seeing in court. What are your thoughts? And it's always nice to see people from social services, from CASA, from health services, from the schools come together. And I'm particularly proud of a lot of progress that we've made in in one area that I'm really proud of is the area of working better with the schools. I think that communication is improving between the schools and the court system. Our probation department have unified our probation department with our community corrections to increase manpower. So we now have a juvenile probation officer that works directly with the schools, and that's his job. And I like that there are teachers that feel comfortable picking up the phone and calling and having a conversation and trying to work out solutions. I think that's really important, and it's something I'm excited to see.
There is no such thing as a perfect human being, and they don't come into the workplace with a sign on their forehead that says how many aces they actually have. So what we do as employers, most employers offer counseling services, like psychiatric counseling, substance abuse counseling. We basically invite those employees to take advantage of the resources that we have so that they can get in control of those problems before the problems control them. Obviously, early detection and early counteraction is important. So we try to retain those associates by providing them with resources to help them, gain an edge over the problems. I think something that it may be a little bit counterintuitive, but one thing that we were able to do as an employer was we offer a free clinic. And this clinic is toddlers on up, and a part of that is wellness. So we're thinking in terms of, physical health, but when you do a wellness clinic, those persons have to go into that environment at least once a year in order to gain the discount associated with it. Otherwise, they pay an exorbitant amount for their health insurance because they don't participate in wellness. When they do this, though, usually they'll interface with a nurse practitioner that will interview them. So they'll ask them questions. Do you have any guns in the house? Do you have these kind of family stress issues? Do you have trouble sleeping? And I think the wellness clinic, because there's actually literally almost a legitimate coercion to get people to go to these clinics in order to take advantage of the cost savings, that you can actually gain that insight on what kind of stresses that person might have, and you can also suggest treatment. Maybe that treatment is actually referred from that medical clinic to psychiatric counseling, substance abuse counseling. It could give them techniques maybe, and I say medications being a last resort obviously, but it may give them some suggested treatments how they might be able to manage that stress or some outlets. And I think that's a very healthy thing that employers can do in terms of the wellness model. If the emotional stability is improved and the stress levels can be brought down a notch or two, then of course you'll see less conflict in the workplace brought from outside the workplace, and a happier employee is an employee that's more likely to stay and also probably not to alienate other coworkers. Ivy Tech does a tremendous amount of things to help students coming from all kinds of challenges, and early childhood adverse experiences being one of them, but they offer all these resources. The challenge that Ivy Tech finds is getting students to access them and use them. But Ivy Tech, with the foundation and the network that we have everything from child care vouchers, transportation vouchers. We can support, we can pay their heating bills if they need help. So we can take areas of stress, financial stress being one of them, that if you add on top of some of these other ones, plus someone to talk to. We now offer philosophical counseling. I mean, there's a lot of resources there. Our challenge, though, that we find is getting the students to actually tap into those resources. And I'll give you a good example of this, is in our student lounge, the common area where our students can, kind of relax, they can study, there's the vending machines, coffee, and so forth. We have our Ivy Cares is our branded individual in our campus that basically coordinates all of those relief efforts and tries to get that help to the students. Her office is right there in that area. So she keeps her door open so she can listen to those conversations in the cafeteria. I mean, sounds like an underhanded trick to some degree, but we try to maintain an eye on what's going on the campus and listen to what our students are saying so that we're there close with a sense of immediacy to kind of relay them to those support things. But I'd reiterate a third time, it's getting them to tap into those resources is the challenge. We know that our students when they form their support network with other students, which is an environment it's much more favorable for face-to-face learning, where they actually come to campus and they interact with their faculty. Our faculty is like highest level of degree concern to make for their well-being. They want to see the students succeed. When we have that face-to-face interaction with the students, I don't know that we're ever going to reach the families in our model as much as, like where we have them all together, where we have access. We do occasionally with the younger people that come directly from high school, but with a community college, the right from high school 18-year-old, you'd be surprised that's not as large of a component of our enrollment as you'd think. Many of ours are in that 21 to 30 or even older group. And the family access is I think it's a little bit distant. We try to get them to establish a relationship with other students, and our nursing programs, they excel at this. So I know we've had quite a few success stories in there because the nursing students tend to have more practical, hands-on programs. They interact with each other, they form social networks. If they were struggling outside of the educational institution, making friends and having people they can talk to, that's in and of itself a form of counseling, I think. So I think there's probably room to do better with the extended group or the family or outside of the environment.
But allowing the parents to have a space where they feel like they can have productive conversations that are non-judgmental, and giving them a space to sort of work through what that is for them and where they might be able to fit some of these suggestions that I'm making into their actual everyday lives. So sometimes I am offering suggestions like simply playing I Spy or talking a child through the preparation of a sandwich. And that sort of connection allows parents to have conversations with their children on the levels that they have the reserves for. And maybe that allows for them to have this sort of what we call a serve and return relationship that's really important with development in children. Sometimes it's just a matter of having those things like we have with the Rising Conference. So really just informing individuals, and I think that once people know more about it, they feel more empowered to speak on it and to engage individuals who may be seemingly struggling, whether it's mental health, physical health, whether it's trying to figure out how to become gainfully employed and maintain that, whether it's the parent who's seemingly uninterested in bringing their child to a wellness check. When we know more about it, we make the assumption that people are trying their best. And when we do that, that opens up a whole nother world of possibilities as to how we might improve the members of our community's life.